That's what I told you.
Okay, everyone stand by. I'm going to do a quick recap before we dive into today's topic. Some questions from yesterday I will address. Is there a gene for smartness or sportiness? I think smartness and sportiness is a combination of many things. For one, to be smart, I assume you need a little amount of brain cells. To be sporty, your coordination needs to be good, your reaction time needs to be good, and you have blood muscles, so on and so forth. So, there are certain traits of our body that's defined by not just one gene, but many genes. In reality, not a lot of traits of our body are defined by a single gene. There are only a few examples that we teach you that goes by this logic. For example, which is what we're going to do today, blood types. Blood types relies on one gene with 3 alleles. I say again, blood type relies on one gene with 3 different versions of it, 3 different alleles. What else has quite distinct alleles that defines very distinct traits? Actually, things like skin color, there's no a single gene that defines skin color. Because if you think about it, skin color is an amalgamation of many factors. Number one, how much melanin, the pigment you can produce. Number two, perhaps how thick the layer of your skin is. If it's not very thick or it's thicker, it could affect how dark your skin could be too. So that could affect. Number three, actually it's affected by the environment too. If you spend a lot of time in the sun, you could get very dark too, right? So I think the point I'm making here is that there are a lot of characteristics. Hello? Yeah. There are a lot of characteristics that are not defined by a single gene. So Alpha, you should be sorry that you know what time lesson starts. No, but they had a program. Okay, so a lot of traits defined by many genes, not just one. The ones we teach you in class happen to be those that are defined by a single gene with a few alleles. Because we are beginner level. When you go up the levels, you can expect a lot of characteristics that are not defined by single genes. So at last, is there any case where characteristics mix instead of becoming dominant and recessive? So for example, so far I've taught you, right, there's dominant and recessive. And in a heterozygous state, the dominant trait will show, right? And I was asking, is there other scenarios where neither of them are dominant over each other? Both show. Have. Just nice is the example we're going to learn today, blood types. Because how many of you here blood type AB? 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 Let's say AB. Blood type AB, you actually have 2 alleles. Allele for blood type A, allele for blood type B. On your red blood cell surface, you show the proteins A as well as the proteins B on the surface. That's what makes your blood type different. You show both the proteins on the surface. People with blood type A, they only show the protein A on the surface. Okay, so actually there are examples, many. Just like what we start off with, we always start off with the basics. A complete dominance over another. Okay? Can you ask, Can a certain allele be extinct? If you are very interested in how this question came about.
No, cause right, if for example I have blonde hair allele, but like I keep like my children and whoever like I have children with all have like dominant alleles, is it possible that the chance of having a blonde baby is so little that it's like considered negligible already?
Oh, okay. So whether an allele goes extinct means that in the human population, so we don't look at your family line, you think very far here. So don't think about family line, think about population. We look at a human population, many different individuals, yeah. So I cannot discount the fact that there's a chance that when you look at your children next time, there's a chance that they may not have the blonde hair anymore because you just nice did not pass your blonde hair allele over. Yeah. Then if your children don't have the blonde hair allele, they will not be able to pass it on. So could it go extinct in your family line? It could. Okay? But in a population, whether it goes extinct, a bit unlikely because there are still other people with blonde hair alleles in the population. Shreya asked, what is the max number of generations that can be skipped for genotype and phenotype? Shreya, can you elaborate what you mean by skipping?
Like you said that like one characteristic can skip from one generation, then it's not to the next generation.
Right, kind of like the peas, right? First gen all same one color.
Then what if like my great grandmother had like disease, and I suddenly got it.
Okay, fair enough. Again, I would say it's not about how many, it's the probability. It's all down to the probability. So let's say you have two heterozygote, maybe your grandparents heterozygote. Let's say the recessive allele is the disease one. So what's the probability that in the next generation you will have children that have the disease? 25%, right? 25%. But let's say your grandparents' children, none of them have the disease. Fair enough? None of them have the disease. That means to say it could be that they either have heterozygotes or homozygote dominant. Right? Both don't have disease. Now it depends on who they marry. Right? Let's say they have the homozygous dominant genotype and they marry someone that is a heterozygote. What's the chances that the baby will have the disease? %, right? 0%, right? So now let's take this generation of children to go and find husband or wives. Let's say we look at this one over here. This individual marries someone that is a homozygous dominant. Still no chance, right? So you see, whether it skips or not depends on who you marry, depends or not on what their genotype is. It could go on for generations without. It could be a case it stops somewhere. Imagine if one of your grandparents' children marries someone that's also homozygous dominant. Then this family line now will not have the recessive disease allele anymore. Right? So it's not about whether it will skip or not. Depends on who you marry and what the genotypes are. Down to probabilities. Shavika asks, what happens if there are three possibilities for phenotype? With eyes, for example, with eyes where we have brown, green, and blue. Can a couple with only the alleles for brown, blue eyes still have a green eye child or any other combination of present allele? Okay, so Shavika, am I right to say your question is, are there certain genes that define not just two phenotypes, but three phenotypes? So far we only study genes that define two phenotypes, right? It's either green or yellow peas, tall, short, pea plant, purple or white flowers. But could there be three phenotypes for a particular gene? Possible. Blood type is another example. You have blood type A, blood type B, blood type O, you can even have blood type AB. So it is possible if there are more than two alleles. So far, the examples we work with, we only work with one dominant one and one recessive one. But for blood types, actually we have three alleles present in the whole human population. From I to B IO. What this means to say, right, is that if you work out the permutations, you can have some combination like that. You can have another combination like that. Another one like that. And crisscross, crisscross, crisscross. Your permutations are quite large. You can have more than 2 different phenotypes. So I would say you are limited by the number of alleles you have. Just as examples you wrote on so far, only 2 alleles. More questions? Siti asks, can 2 parents with albinism have a normal child? Okay, that being said, okay, I don't think I've answered immediate answer, quite I cannot remember if albinism is determined by recessive or dominant. Can you do a quick Google? Albinism, everyone can Google. Albinism, is it a dominant or recessive allele? Then we will have the answer to Sisi's question. It's recessive, okay. So you found it's recessive, huh? So now we relook at Sisi's question. And Sisi, do you think you can answer the question now?
But like there is like parents with albinism that have
How is that possible? Did they describe what the science is?
they say they carry mutations in different genes and called like genetic complementation.
They have genetic mutations.
So they have like genetic complementation.
Oh, okay, I've not heard that term before in my study as well. Yes, Pinya, you have an answer?
Wait, no, I'm not asking.
Okay. Okay, I've not heard that term before, so I cannot refute that yet. But if we just go by what we've learned, two homozygous recessive come together, actually quite hard for the child to not have the disease. But I don't know what that complementary thing is. Maybe I need to read up. Pinya, what's your question?
Are these alleles affected? Like, are they created through mutations like silent mutation, missense mutation?
Oh, okay. Now Pinya is asking, how did different alleles arise? For example, if you go back in time and you scan the human population, all of our genes for blood type, there was only one allele O. So if you go back in time, actually all of the human population was allele O. Along the way, allele A popped up, allele B popped up. But the question here is, how does it pop up? Actually, you've learned this before. What changes is the DNA sequence. Okay, what do I mean by that? If I look at a chromosome and I look at one segment of the DNA, this segment defines the blood type O. If one part of the segment, let's say is A, T, C, G, T, A, G, C, so on and so forth, if suddenly you find that there is a mutation, very small mutation, still codes for the protein, just a slight difference in the protein, that's when you get a different blood type. So in reality, all alleles arise from mutations. We are all different because we are mutants. Sorry, as I'm saying this now, I realized I said this yesterday. Okay? We are all mutated, but it's our mutations, our imperfections that make us perfectly unique and beautiful. Well, I feel like I'm making a commercial. Okay, then right now I'm going to skincare products and hair care. Forgot the question. Pinya, your question was?
So is it like changed by like silent mutation?
Okay, so that's a great question. So what kind of mutations will cause the arrival of alleles? Usually, silent mutations will not cause. Because if we say something is silent, means that it didn't change the protein in any way. Right? If it didn't change the protein, the phenotype wouldn't change. So it is usually the missense ones. The substitutions, those substitution mutations, they lead to missense mutations that could lead to a different protein produced. Nonsense mutations, the ones that cause the proteins to be shorter. I would say there was no chance it will develop a new allele altogether, because the more you get a short protein, that individual may die as a result. But I cannot rule out, there's a chance that nonsense mutation can also create new alleles. Okay? But I would say the silent ones, you won't at least get new alleles that you can see.
Frame shape.
Frame shift. Frame shift is quite disastrous. I have a feeling if that happens, the individual will die or not grow up fully, won't pass this allele on, it will not spread in this population. Okay? Any more questions? If not, we will now go into the next part of our topic. Let's look at a real life example. So far we've been working with pea plants and pigeons. Now let's go to something most relatable. Blood types. Because when we look at blood types, we can apply a lot of what we just learned yesterday about dominant, recessive, homozygous, heterozygous. I'm about to screen a video for us to quickly learn about how blood types work, how alleles work in blood types, and I'll draw out after that the differences that you observe as compared to what we've learned so far.
There are four groups, A, B, AB, and O. There are three possible C in our blood groups. There are four groups, A, B, AB, and O.
Okay, I do a quick pause up. When we look at your blood types, we know that in a human population, there's blood type A, B, AB, and O. What we have not learned so far is what the genotype of these phenotypes are. So we look to the left. Based on all this, can you tell me which allele is dominant, which is recessive? Yeah, say again, we've learned all these terms before. All the alleles you see there, just from what you see here, can you tell which is dominant, which is recessive? It's almost like a pigeon table, except now you look at blood types. Okay? Alpha says A and B are dominant. Okay, I want you all now that you are getting quite good with the vocabulary to string it together in sentences. When we say something is dominant, we usually follow up with is dominant over something else. Okay? To say that something is dominant, we don't know it's dominant over what. So for example, alpha says the allele A and B are dominant over allele IO. Alpha, how do you tell? Okay, so alpha says he observes when it is both IA and IO, the phenotype is A. Okay, let's again use more vocabulary. Alpha, try to use the terms homozygous, heterozygous. How will you fit it here? When the genotype is heterozygous with the alleles IA and IO, the phenotype is blood type A. Yeah? So we learn to use our vocabulary when we justify our reasoning. So we know one thing. IO is recessive, IA and IB dominant. I'd like to now include a little bit more, one more layer. I keep saying dominant, but now I want to include another word in front. Complete dominance. Okay? Complete, because that's what we've been learning so far. When we look at dominance, he has been completely dominant over another trait. But it makes more sense when you look at this particular phenotype and genotype here. You observe that when A and B are present together, both of them show on the surface. How might we describe this? I'd like to introduce a new word today, because the word we can use is this. IA and IB are co-dominant to each other. And that's why I include now the word complete dominance, or completely dominant. Because there's another scenario. Some alleles are co-dominant. If they are both present, they both show on the surface. Let me give you another example. if I have flowers now, so let's say I have flowers that are, okay, so I'm going to define let A, okay, instead, let's say I have two flowers, like that. Wait, scratch that. This won't make any sense in a pun context. Okay, so we pause here. Okay, so I just want you to take away. So far we've learned complete dominance, or you can rephrase it as completely dominant. A few ways you could say it, or co-dominant with each other. Okay? Next thing we can learn about blood types is that so far all of the genes we learned about, there are only two versions of the alleles. But blood type, we have more than two. So another interesting thing about blood type that we can learn, I'm going to introduce a new word to you, multiple alleles. Some genes have multiple alleles. In fact, not just some. Many genes in the world have multiple alleles. It's just that when we teach you biology, genetics as a beginner, we tend to choose examples that only have two alleles. Okay? But a lot of genes have multiple alleles. And that's why we are teaching you blood types. Blood types is a very unique example, not unique example, blood types is a very real example of how genes can have multiple alleles and also how genes can sometimes be co-dominant with each other. Okay? Actually, you don't need to watch video. So the next part, they ask you what are the alleles for blood types A, B, and O. This should be quite a simple question. All you have to do is to pick the blood types that are present. There's only one that's incorrect. You know which one is incorrect. Three of the options are correct, one are wrong. One is wrong. Papa, do you go for you choose the wrong one, is it?
I thought the question was which is not.
Oh, which is not an allele. Okay. So which are alleles? By right, you should choose A, B, and D. For those of you that got it wrong, you may have read the question wrongly. There is no allele that is blood type A, B together. Okay, for those with blood type A, B, you actually have two alleles. You are heterozygote. Yes.
Is dominant why is it dominant?
Oh, okay. How you ask, what makes something dominant over another? Okay, there's no one mechanism for dominance. Sometimes dominance is because a particular enzyme, when produced, can intercept a reaction, then cause the other reaction to not occur. Sometimes it's because of the production of a pigment, and in the absence of this pigment, you don't see the color. So dominance, there are many mechanisms to them. There's no one single mechanism to dominance. Next question. Let's apply everything we learned from yesterday in today's context. I'd like you now, everyone, to practice drawing genetic diagrams again. Can you draw a genetic diagram to show me the possible blood groups of children whose father is heterozygous for blood group A and a mother with blood group AB? Can you practice your genetic diagram drawing skills, but this time with humans now? Everyone try now. I'll give you around 10 minutes to complete this genetic diagram and submit. Then we'll do a quick check. Genetic diagram refers to all those what we learned yesterday. This is a Punnett square. Okay, not a genetic diagram. Everyone practice drawing a genetic diagram. get to define the alleles. For blood type alleles, I'm sorry, you are not allowed to define your own. The whole scientific community has decided this will be what it is, but you still need to define it. Okay, you can only use these three, nothing else. Whole scientific community has decided on this. I cannot. How you ask? Can you just write B or A or O? Cannot, because every alphabet stands for a gene. If you write three different alphabets, you're referring to three different genes. Notice I use the same alphabet. It's just that I superscript the A, B, and O. But I'm still using I. Yeah, I still need to define, even though the scientific community has defined it already. Ah, okay. So how do you write it, right? Because it's blood type. So you can say still say that the dominant allele for blood type A be IA, dominant for blood type B be IB, the recessive one for blood type O.
But they don't like co-dominant.
Oh no. Yeah. Co-dominance needs to be in relation to something else. Or, if I define circle the wrong. So not supposed to circle the one.
Should have been.
Okay, as I'm walking around, I start to see we are missing out certain rows. So don't merge the rows together. When we refer to the genetic diagram you drew yesterday, make sure you don't merge rows. So start off with the phenotype. Please refer to the diagram. So we start off with the parental genotype. Then it's the parental phenotype. Then the parental genotype. Then from the parental genotype, we bunch up to form the proteins. So you can actually this first line. This one got it. You start off with blood type A, blood type AB, and this is the phenotype, right? Shoot this middle down. This is the genotype. You must respond a bit lah. I don't know if like. Then when if you want like an example of what diagram looks like, then refer to the example. Yeah, notice down. Okay, so this way. You notice you write also twice. Yeah, and we always start with phenotype and genotype. Then genotype and phenotype. Let me see. Your circles. You don't have to show probability, but the last line, the expected ratio must always be. Oh, this only. Yeah, you can include. This one is parental phenotype. Phenotype is the gene characteristic. Genotype is mating process. What's yours? You don't get the habit of this. Eventually must go and oh, so we do. Yeah. Alright, the ratio at 3. So, yes, it's true. Your ratio now will have 3 different blood types for you to do the ratio. So what is 2:1:1, is it? The last line of a genetic diagram is always the ratio. Okay, that's a good point. Do you only do it when they ask? No, you always do it. We have Zhixuan's example on the screen. Looks good. For her expected ratio, she listed down 3 headers. I think this is well done. Okay, some of you are going to practice mixed progress for the blood types. You can try. Okay, I'm going to bring another example.
My mom's not done.
Okay. Here's Wenxin's one. Oh, okay. Which part?
I drew 3 lines out of the
Oh, IA has 3 lines coming up. Okay. Good spot. And therefore your genotypes ended up different, right? How do you realize it was off?
what's the ratio?
Because the ratio was? Oh,
Only got 2 blood.
okay. Let's look at this example here by Jeanette. Jeanette defined the alleles. Let IA be the dominant allele for blood type A. Let IB be the dominant allele for blood type B. IO be the recessive allele for blood type O. Then she went on to show the parental phenotype, the genotype. Then after that, she branched out the meiosis lines to form the sex cells. Then the fertilization lines to form the offspring. Then she showed the phenotype. So one thing is missing is the ratio. Yeah, the phenotypic ratio. Okay, but I like that everyone has got the gist of it. On average, you are getting around 4 to 5 marks for your genetic diagrams. Okay, another good example here. I can see all the headers from one look. Very well done. Okay, this one is interesting. Let IA be the co-dominant allele for blood type A. Let IB be the co-dominant allele for blood type B. I have to admit, I've not seen people define it this way before. So, is it wrong? Let IA be the co-dominant allele for the... I think it's possible. It's not exactly wrong. Yes. The notes are okay. Oh, I've seen another way it has been defined before. I've never seen people define it this way. They say let IA, IB, IO be the alleles for blood type A, B, O respectively. Then after that, you go on to say which one is dominant, which is co-dominant, which is recessive. Yeah. I wouldn't say that it's a fixed template per se, as long as we know what your symbols represent. It's just a legend. Okay? Okay, so there's another round of practice for genetic diagrams. As I was walking around, I saw quite a lot of good practices. Just that we are starting to skip some lines or fusing some lines together. When I say lines, I'm referring to the rows. Some students, for example, thought that this is wrong. The most common thing that students start doing is that they start to merge the parental genotype and gamete row together. They omit the genotype line altogether. They just went from parental phenotype, then they jump straight to gametes. And they start doing a crisscross already. So make sure you have all the headers. That's why I always feel the best practice is to write down all the headers first, then you start to fill in the blanks. Rather than do row by row. Higher chance you'll forget certain points. My preference also is that if you are given a blood type question, you write blood type A, blood type AB, rather than just write A or AB. Okay, it's more complete when you describe the phenotype. Okay, with that done, let's do some practice now. We go to the next segment, practice makes progress. Perhaps some of you have already tried it. Try question 1, MCQ. Okay, I do not need you to do part B. Because actually we have the time now. Okay, maybe do all the questions. Practice drawing one more genetic diagram. Okay, so I think we won't do too much today. For the rest of today, please complete the practice. So everyone should draw one more genetic diagram. I'll go around to check your drawings again. each of blood group A have a daughter of blood group O. Okay? So how you tell it is in the child? The fact that the child is blood group O. AB. Oh. Don't need. People tend to attach the word complete with the word dominant. Just realize you don't exactly need to redraw the genetic diagram. Go and just change the alleles from your previous one. You should be able to solve the puzzle. Oh, okay. Your textbook shows a lot of shortcut genetic diagrams where they skip a lot of lines. That is for more advanced level people to do. I suggest you don't follow the textbook. Go through the full steps, draw all the lines out. You'll be safer that way. One is AD. One of them is just OO. To get all the types, you need a child that has both O, right? One parent A, one parent and the other parent. Alright, you solve the puzzle, yeah? So, because you acknowledge, right, you need a child with both IO, right? But the only way that happens is if one parent has one IO, the other parent has one IO. But you know this, actually blood type O is the most common blood type in the world. Even though it's recessive. Yeah. But the reason why, maybe I should bring this up. Can you ask an interesting question? Given that blood type O, the allele is recessive, does that mean there is less people with blood type O? I went to Google the statistics. Actually, blood type O is the most. Okay, the whole world, there are many more people with blood type O. possible, yet it's recessive. It's not due to lack, it's due to evolution. Because originally the human population were all blood type O. The mutations arise resulting in blood type A and B and AB. So this mutation is not, say, evolutionary speaking, didn't come that early, came quite late. So actually, the vast majority of population is still O. Yeah? Another way to look at it is that there aren't that many of the A and B alleles floating around in the human population pool. Yes? What's your blood type? Your oh, makes sense? Okay, thank God it makes sense. There was one year, there was a student doing this, thinking ahead, they realized something that makes sense. Do you know your parents' blood type? Does it make sense now? How you got your blood type? How was your parents' blood type? Okay, interesting. Alpha's parents, Alpha's parents, one of them blood type A, one of them blood type B. But Alpha is blood type O. Possible? So what is the genotype of his parents? IAIO? IAIO. Alpha, your siblings? So your sibling, not necessarily blood type O, right? What's your sibling blood type? Oh, you don't know. You're the only O, and then your other siblings, different blood type. But it's possible, right? Because they could have inherited one A from mom, one B from dad, and one of your siblings would be blood type AB. Yes?
My mom's blood type is O, my dad's blood type is A by AB.
Say again?
My mom's blood type is O, my dad's blood type is A by AB.
Yeah. There's a possibility you got the blood type wrong. You go and double check your parents. You go and ask your parents again.
I asked already.
Do you just ask?
Yeah, like last week. Because of the rules.
You go and ask them again. Depends on how much you want to know.
Wait, so it's not possible.
Yeah, genetically speaking. See, this happened to me once before in this class. Your predecessor, seniors also, just like Mr. 03. One boy at the back of the class also asked this question. Then my reply is that, I bet you got your parents' blood type wrong. Because he looked very upset lah. So I said, go and call your parents now. Then after he went and called, and he came back, he was like, Mr. Tan, you're right. I got the blood types of my parents wrong. My only reply to you, Minya, is that you probably got the blood type of your parents wrong. Because, yeah. You know what I said? Go and find out.
I'm AB. I go to the test.
I mean, I trust that Mia knows her blood type. Oh, let's see, controlled by another gene. Okay, I'm going to go to question 1 first and MCQ. A lot of us chose option B. How to solve this question? This question requires you to do a little bit of math. Okay, so for those of you that got this question wrong, this is how it goes. You have 2 parents, one with blood type A, both with blood type A, and they have daughter of blood type O. What does it say about the parents' genotype? They must have been heterozygotes, right? Because that's the only way for the child to have blood type O. So I'm going to draw this in now. one of the blood types. You can be homozygous for A, heterozygous for A and O, another heterozygous one. Finally, you can be homozygous recessive. They ask you what is the probability that next child will be a boy that has blood group O. What's the probability of getting O? It is 1/4. But read the question carefully. They ask you also, but what if it's a boy? What's the probability that a child will be a boy or girl? 50-50. So actually the answer is 1/8 times 100%, and you should get what's that? Is it 12.5% or 0.125? Okay? So I think you got it wrong because you forgot gender. The gender is important, in your probability calculation. You have to do it correct. Your math teacher teach you if it's two separate. Why? I cannot remember. Math teacher last time taught me is use times and plus. When do you use times or plus? You got teach you? No. Probability. No? You know probability in math? But I thought there's a difference if you plus the probabilities versus you times it.
What is or? What is n?
One is or, one is n, right? The times is the n, right? Yeah. Okay, so you cannot plus. Plus means there are two separate scenarios really. Okay, so that's question 1. I will stop here for today. The next time I see you, we will go through the rest of this practice makes progress. And then we will go into one other oddity you find in humans. Not just humans, a lot of living organisms. Some of the genes are linked to your sex chromosomes. So far we've been working with genes that are found on the other 22 chromosomes of your body. 22 pairs. But there are some genes that are found only on sex chromosomes. That means that sometimes you find certain characteristics more in females than in males, or males than in females. And next week we'll also start to look at family trees. We'll start to solve puzzles of family trees. This one is the ultimate level of puzzle. If you like to, you can even skip ahead already. You actually have enough knowledge to be able to solve such puzzles. Okay, we're nearly at the end of this chapter also. And we have one more chapter to go. Not math, right? Right? Who's your math teacher? Sometimes she very early. Sorry? Yeah. Sometimes she's here 2 minutes earlier, then I come right class. Is she there already?
How does it work?
She is Oh!
Just
Yes,
try
sir.
to form. Everything I know you know. We are looking at the
Is she
same
hiding outside? Okay, okay. Just like